Well, good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining us here on Monday. I know it is very chilly outside, even inside. I'm like, I had to turn my heat on today. I was like, oh my goodness. So, for anybody out there that's had to, go outside, drive, have your kids outside, stay warm because it is chilly. So, again, thank you so much for joining me here. And Sassy Lady, thank you so much for joining and reposting the stream on X. And with that, we're going to get into our Kids Corner.
God needed that painful season in your life to happen? What if it was intentional? What if the thing that hurt you the most is the thing He's using to shape you the most? I know it's hard to hear that. Nobody chooses pain. But sometimes the parts of our story that feel confusing, the moments that scared us, the seasons that broke us, are actually the seasons that God uses to build us. Hey, I'm Gray, and I make Christian videos on the internet to help you grow closer to God. Romans 8:28 says, God works all things together for good for those who love Him. Listen, it doesn't say everything is good. It says God can use anything. Think about Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, thrown in a pit, sold as a slave, unfairly imprisoned. Yet later he said, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. Old Testament, New Testament, they line up. Sometimes the thing that broke you becomes the thing that God uses to bless you. Sometimes the season that scares you is the season that grows you. And sometimes the pain that you don't understand today makes sense once you see who you've become tomorrow. So instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Try to ask, what is God growing in me? Strength, compassion, patience, wisdom. He's growing your faith. Pain doesn't get the final word. Jesus does. And He never wastes a season. So if you're in a hard place right now, just hold on. God might be using this exact moment to build you something that couldn't be built another way. So trust Him, even in the painful seasons. For more, peace, God bless.
Wow. From the mouths of babes, as they say. So thank you so much for that. Sorry, guys. Trying to figure out my views. My goodness. Bear with me. Let me get back to my this is oh goodness. It's so interesting. I love technology. Sometimes I love technology. Sometimes technology is always working against me. There we go. At least I'll deal with that view as opposed to the little circular view. Oh my goodness. So I know that we will have another segment coming up shortly. But before we get into that, let's get into how to honor God with our bodies. And definitely, God, please guard our thoughts, our mind. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears. Help me to listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help my hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. God, please protect my reproductive organs. Help me to honor God with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. God, please protect my feet and help me to walk in your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And I try to read that every day. And I say try because, sometimes I want to get into the, everything. But even for me, and I'm definitely going to even be making more of a conscious effort going into the new year. I want to make sure that I'm honoring God with my life, putting God first, right? Because a lot of times we'll say, "Well, I put God first in everything." Are you really? Are you sure? Right? It's one of those things. Are you sure? Are you positive? And you'll know if you're putting God first because everything else is secondary, and you just put him first, and that's it. That's it. There's no questions. There's no nothing. You're just putting God first in everything. So with that, we're going to get into our first piece of news, and definitely we need to stay prayerful about this because there was a shooting, unfortunately, at Brown University over the weekend, and they had apprehended someone. And I've been, just following the news, and apparently they released that person. And it was very interesting because, listening to because when things like this happen, it's evolving, right? They're looking for people, they have suspects, and they asked them, they said, "Do you have the person you're looking for?" And of course they believe they had the person, but now this person's been released. So now where does that put us? Where does that put the students? They had interviewed some students and they said that they were, their parents were like, "Please come home." Because I can understand you wanting your children to be safe and knowing where they are. And at least if they're with you, you know that they're safe. And Lisa says, "Help me, Lord, want to put you first in everything. I make so many mistakes and I feel like I don't put you first. Please help me to do your will. I'm sorry, Lord." Oh, that's precious. And and those are the communications he wants to have with us. And it's always to remember, even when you don't speak those things out loud, the spirit, you know, speaks to God on your behalf. It utters words that we can't even put together, but it's just God knowing your heart. So thank you so much for sharing that with us this morning, Lisa. Definitely appreciate you. So we're going to get into our first piece of news. And again, like I said, they found the person. Now they're saying they don't. So hopefully their investigation will expand and they'll get some more information to apprehend the person responsible.
Analyst joins us now, Stephen O'Donnell. We have so many questions. Let's start with the fact that there's no shelter in place now. You'd think after this person of interest was in custody, was released, there's no as much panic as there was when this initially happened on Saturday night.
Well, the panic is because of what happened and trying to figure out where. So has the threat diminished? It has diminished, but the suspect's still out there. Last night, too, there were some swatting calls on the east side, a lot of police response. Could it be the suspect that's doing or somebody that's playing games? So that may give them some lead. So to me, it's interesting that the Attorney General is now taking the lead in these press conferences and trying to figure out what happens. But I think it's important for people to know, because people are going to be criticizing a lot the next couple of days, that because law enforcement took a person of interest in, as I refer to him, it doesn't mean everything else stopped. It doesn't mean all 400 police officers stopped looking. They continue to investigate, and just because they have one, they may have another person of interest, another lead that they've been following anyhow, because they typically, when they bring somebody in that may have been a suspect or you're interested in what they did, those facts led the police that something happened.
Right.
And so it's really important they did it. So it didn't pan out that's the person, but while that's happening, doesn't mean everybody shut down and said it's over. So it continues to evolve.
Some people are asking, on social media, elsewhere, I want to just get your insight on this. Would there be a situation where a case like this, the person who was released might end up being the suspect down the line? They just didn't have enough evidence to detain them further.
It depends. The answer is yes. But different comments that were made in the press conference. One was they don't have enough evidence. That's a telltale sign that they might be able to get more evidence. And there were others that we determined that he was not a person of interest at all. So it's they're not contradictory, but you can never let that go. So this particular person got arrested in a hotel with guns. That's concerning. So those guns My guess is they probably checked those guns ballistically and they didn't match. But it doesn't mean that someone didn't take that barrel out, because there's striations that go with these bullets. So everything's on the table. The police really can't talk about it for the reasons I already mentioned it. So I think the public should understand that the police, this evolves. Law enforcement is not a specific science. They got to get it right. And that's the key. Panic? No. I think people have to go about their daily business, because terror, if it's intended to be terror, that's what works.
Final question, and the Attorney General seemed to get really frustrated about this yesterday, was about the release of video surveillance. And there's so many cameras everywhere, you know that, and we only have this one shot of this person of interest walking around the corner down the street. Why isn't there more being released? Because remember the marathon bombing, we had so much that helped. Yes. And in this case, why isn't there more?
Well, it's possible, as they said, that it doesn't exist. So that's kind of what came out of it. When they've been looking at different Hope Street and down the angles. And it should be noted too that there's a real-time crime center. That evidence, or not evidence, video goes right into that crime center. So when that happened and Providence Police calls for that video, they don't have the video in the real crime center from Brown. They had to go physically get it, which is a delay, and it takes time to pull that video. But rest assured, they're going to continue to, and they have been. I think that's really important that people know that they didn't just say, we have a person, we just stop. It evolves, and it's not the first time that law enforcement across the country has somebody that may have not done it. And it's important, if that person didn't do it, that they're not prosecuted. So I think we have to use caution when we talk about it. I think they did a really good job not releasing information for that reason, because they probably felt somewhere that this may not be the person.
Interesting. All right, Stephen O'Donnell, thank you so much for your insight, as always, and we'll be checking in with you, of course, throughout the day and as the investigation continues in the coming days.
Yeah, so it's always to remember, with any investigation, they're ongoing. I think the sad part is how they were talking about, how people have to learn how to shelter in place because there's so many shootings going on, especially at college campuses. I think the thing that stood out to me the most is the access that this person had. So it means like any random person can just walk on any college university and just access any of the buildings. Like, that's weird to me, only because we obviously we've had mass shootings everywhere on different college campuses, high school campuses. You would think by now you would only have card key access, right? Only students and faculty that should have access to the buildings should have access, right? I'm okay with that, because if you get an identification card, it should have some type of card reader on it. So if you go to a door and you're accessing your classroom or whatever, you swipe your card, or you hold it up and you get access. I mean, am I the only person that thinks that every single school, or especially a university, right? Because campuses are spread out. They're not in one particular building. The only building that anybody should be able to freely access, and even then still be monitored, is your administrative building, right? Because that should be your first point of entry. You shouldn't be able to just go on a college campus and just roam the campus. Really? But I know some campuses are built like they're a part of the city or community. I used to live in Irvine, California, and the Irvine campus was very similar to that. So their dormitories, you would think they were just regular apartments, if you weren't paying attention to the large sign that said, this is the Irvine campus. But other than that, it just looked like, standard dormitory buildings. There's no gates. There's no security like that. You can just walk on there randomly, right? And then there are other buildings. Like if you drive down their streets and go different places, you can park. But the actual entry to the building, why haven't they done this? And then when things like this happen, they want to say, oh no, we got to take away everybody's gun rights, because the gun didn't walk into the building. A person that had a particular outcome in mind did this. The question is why? And the engineering building, this is random, in my opinion. I'm like, what alt would you have with other smart people? I I don't understand it. Did you get a bad grade? Do you have an issue with a professor? Everybody's getting ready to go on break. It's right before the holidays. It screams, in my opinion, it screams a whole FBI grift or CIA. Like that's what this screams to me. Because I would not be surprised if they go, "Oh, it's related to somebody from Afghanistan or this or that." And I'll put allegedly to get us all on tilt. So again, we are trying to look at each other on the ground and fight, back and forth with one another, as opposed to saying, who did this for real? Who set this up for real? Because that's too convenient to find somebody and then real convenient to release them. I'm just saying, FBI, CIA, look, intelligence community, everybody's looking at you first. That's where I'm at. I'm looking at you first. You did this because you kind of hold the keys to the back doors of information. You're listening to all of us through our phones. You're collecting all of our information illegally, right? Because as opposed to it being, hey, unless you have probable cause, you can't survey everybody. You're like, well, we just want to keep everybody safe. So we'll just survey everyone. You're on the hook for this. You need to look internally to who did this, and then you need to bring them forth. We're tired of playing games with y'all. It's sad. Anyway, let's get into our next segment and with our weekly sports recap with Conscious Outlaw. And let me bring him to the stage. Hey, Conscious, how are you?
How are you doing today? Good morning, Unfiltered Vision family.
Doing well, doing well. So, yeah, I mean, the games were very interesting this weekend. So, looking forward to your recap.
Yeah, they're very interesting. So we at week 15, and so we coming down the stretch. So we got two teams that have clinched. Denver clinched out of the AFC with at 12-2, and they got the number one seed. And the LA Rams clinched out the NFC with 11-3. Now we still have a lot. Yeah, we have a lot of interesting things. But with week 15, some teams are kind of in it, but they're kind of not. But the teams that are in the hunt right now are New England at 11-3, Seattle at 11-3, Chicago at 10-4, Jacksonville at 10-4, LA Chargers at 10-4, Buffalo at 10-4, and San Francisco at 10-4. Now the other bottom half teams that we have, they're kind of in a hunt, but they kind of need some help. Like for instance, Green Bay, they play Chicago next week, but they lost their edge rusher Michael Parsons to a torn ACL. Speaking of torn ACL, also that happened to Patrick Mahomes this weekend.
Yeah.
So of course we know they're out of the playoffs. So at the bottom half of the playoff hunt, you have Green Bay at 9-4, Philadelphia at 9-5, Houston at 9-5. Detroit at 86, Indy at 86, where they started Philip Rivers at 44 years old, trying to save their season.
Look,
I don't know
little
how.
old man running around that field getting it done. It was crazy.
Yeah. Pittsburgh is 7-9, Tampa Bay is 7-7, Baltimore 7-7, Dallas at 6-7, and Miami at 6-7. So the bottom half teams they need help. They in tougher divisions. They may get in, they may not. But like I said, the very first top teams that I listed out, the first one, two, three, four, five, six, seven teams, they're in there. So with the double-digit win records. And so, who's eliminated, who have no absolute mathematical chance, are Kansas City, Minnesota, Atlanta, Cincinnati, New Orleans, Washington, the Jets, Cleveland, Arizona, Raiders, Tennessee, and the Giants. So those are the teams that's out for sure. They are hunting for the number one draft pick at this point.
Well,
Shador
yeah.
Sanders had a very sad game too. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say outside of some of them being plagued with injuries, right? Because it was like injury season. I was like, whoa. A lot of them, I mean, fortunately for the Giants, they had to replace their quarterback. Like it just was not happening, right? And then with Cincinnati, it was injuries. And so it was one of those things. It was either the people that needed to get it done were injured, or they had to replace the people who just weren't getting things done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. Like how we had in Cleveland, where they went through three quarterbacks, and then like Atlanta, they lost their quarterback in about mid-season. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a very interesting season. But injuries is the nature of football, it's the nature of the game. That's why the
Yeah.
Patriots are always good for being next man up type of situation. And I just want to have a quick nod to college basketball because I saw something interesting. I wasn't going to cover college basketball, but I saw interesting. There's four unbeaten teams in college basketball at this
Oh,
point. It's the Michigan Wolverines at 9-0,
okay.
Arizona Wildcats at 8-0, Duke Blue Devils at 10-0, and the Iowa State Cyclones. And what's interesting about the Iowa
Oh,
State Cyclones is their men and women are both undefeated. There are
wow.
10 undefeated women teams: UConn, Texas, LSU, Maryland, TSU, the Cyclones, Iowa, the Barnstormers, Vanderbilt, and Nebraska. So yeah, it's getting juicy. So
That is cool. That's good, because I mean, the Wolverines, they have not been even thought of for a while. I mean, I know Jalen Rose, he went in there and he really changed, their program to so where they could stack teams and do better. So I'm glad that hard work is paying off now.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. So yeah, that's all I got, and we'll start covering a little bit more college basketball and start touching on the NBA. The NBA is still a little dry right now, but we'll start covering that probably
There's so
next week.
much basketball. Oh my gosh. Like I'm exhausted. Like they stop in July and they start in September. Like newsflash. I don't need that much basketball. And I like basketball. Like I'm okay if they kind of crept in around like Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? Maybe with some prelim games and then just took all of December off and then came back at like the end of January. And the reason why I say that is because it's too much basketball. Hello, nobody cares about the Emirates Trophy. I don't know. Is anybody out there? We didn't vote for that. Okay. I don't know who voted for this, but I don't like it. A lot of
No,
basketball.
yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, they really could start in like February. That's when I started watching around the All Star break. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's what I got this week, and I enjoy. I had a little technical difficulties, but I made it in. The winner got us. The winner got us.
Right. And thank you, and I try to keep my phone next to me. So I know, like, okay, what do
All
we
right.
got going on? And it's okay. I think everybody's used to it by now. It's like, look, I got cameras falling, I got lights that sometimes turn on and off. It happens. It's the nature of technology, but I'm grateful that you always hang in there and bring us the most news for sports in a consolidated manner on our Monday. So thanks again, Conscious.
Thank you. See y'all next week.
All right, have a good one. All right. And Sassy Lady says, "Go Broncos, go." Oh, we got a Broncos fan in the building. Yes. They've had a pretty decent season with Bo Nix. It's one of those things I can't be mad. I'm glad that, the younger quarterbacks for the most part are having a good season. I'm definitely really, it's not emotional, but I felt really bad for Patrick Mahomes, his injury, because it wasn't a bad hit. He was just doing what he does. He was running the ball and he just fell a certain way and he got injured. And so, unfortunately, he's not going to be able to play. Luckily, it's towards the end of the season, which gives him time to heal and rebuild himself back. But, I definitely am praying for him and any of the other players that got injured because a lot of times we don't think about them being real people sometimes, right? But they are real human beings with real lives. And, injuries can, kind of make or break a player. And sometimes they can take them out completely. And this is, being in the NFL is something that they worked for a lifetime. So definitely, praying for our football warriors out there and a speedy recovery and happy holidays. So, with that, we will take a quick break. And when we return, we will get back into some more news. So, thank you again for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Take your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
Yeah, and I just wanted to play that really quick. I do have an app, and it's going to be an online app. So it won't be something that you can access from the App Store. It will actually be a link that I will be sending out the day after Christmas, right? And it will be for the full length, right? The full length program that I do here and broadcast. And I'll also be adding some special interviews that I will do that will not necessarily air live on my broadcast, but just some different things that I think, yeah, I want to talk about this, and I don't want to post it on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok with the how should I say, the potential of being censored or blocked or demonetized or shadow banned, right? So I'm like, you know what? I'll just have my own app. I'll just do it myself with a little help from AI, of course. But with that, you know, there is a way to get around the censorship. And so that is my way of getting around it. So again, I've got an app that will be dropping the day after Christmas. And leading up to that, you're going to see those little spots that I have on my social media. And again, I will be dropping that link on the 26th of December. So let's get into our second order of news. Well, the Trump administration has decided, we're going to see where they're going to go with the cannabis um, route. And Minnesota Fats, thank you for joining us this morning on X and reposting the stream.
Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm Shauna Kalafi. Cannabis stocks are skyrocketing amid reports that President Trump may reclassify the drug with an executive order, maybe as soon as Monday. Now, we have this tweet from the Washington Post. They were the ones that reported this on Thursday. They said, breaking news, President Trump is expected to push the government to significantly ease federal marijuana restrictions, treating the plant and its derivatives like common prescription painkillers and other drugs. Now, on Thursday, the Washington Post made that report. They say that President Trump plans to direct agencies to reclassify marijuana as a Schedule III drug. Again, that is the same as some prescription painkillers. And following these reports, shares of cannabis companies jumped on Friday. We're joined now by Mackenzie Tatanani, who covers financial news and market trends for Barron's. Thank you so much for being here.
Shauna, thank you for having me. It's great to be on.
So, Mackenzie, what exactly have we seen from these cannabis company stocks in the last few days, and what kind of jump are we talking about here?
So I covered these stocks mostly on Friday, and we saw very, very sharp reactions to what was essentially a lot of unconfirmed news, to use a word that sounds fairly strong, but we were seeing different outlets reporting different things with regard to this potential timeline for some action to be taken regarding the reclassification of marijuana at the federal level. Some outlets were indicating this could be sometime in early 2026. We had others saying that there could be an executive order from President Trump as soon as Monday. So regardless of what that unclear timeline might shake out to be, stocks jumped on that news. As of the market close on Friday, some of the names that I was following for reference, two cannabis companies, one real estate investment trust, which is it related to the cannabis industry in that realm, and then two exchange traded funds, which are essentially a basket of stocks linked to that industry. Two of the stocks that I followed, Tilray Brands and Canopy Growth, closed up 44% and 54% respectively. So very, very sharp percentage gains. Those two ETFs, I think, are worth noting. The Amplify Seymour Cannabis ETF, which trades under the ticker CNBS or cannabis, closed up 55%. And the Advisor Shares Pure US Cannabis ETF closed up 54%. In both those cases, that was the largest single day percent gain on record. So what we were saying was very, very clear enthusiasm from investors in this industry who are essentially waiting for the next big stock catalyst. And they're seeing this as, no matter when this ends up happening, that is what it's going to be, essentially a big catalyst for these shares.
And the White House has said that no final decision has been made in terms of reclassifying cannabis. But historically, what kind of movement have we seen in the market for the cannabis industry as new legislation has come out since legalization several years ago in many states? Have there been other jumps like this that we've seen in the cannabis industry?
So I noted in my coverage, I was taking a bit more of what seemed like possibly a more cautious approach to this news. And that is because we have seen a similar reaction from these stocks before. And that was back in August when President Trump indicated that he told reporters sometime in the next coming few weeks, there could be some kind of decision made. He said he was weighing the pros and cons of how marijuana was regulated. And indicated there might be some kind of decision in the coming weeks, which didn't ultimately pan out. But at the time, we saw similarly sharp double-digit percentage gains for Tilray Brands, Canopy Growth, these other stocks that I mentioned. And there are some other names that I didn't necessarily follow on Friday that are other ways to kind of gain exposure to this industry. Names like Curaleaf, Cresco Labs, Green Thumb Industries. These are stocks that anytime there is some kind of indication that there could be a shift at the regulatory level, especially the federal level, they tend to jump following that kind of news.
And if the drug is reclassified, that would alleviate a lot of the tax burdens on the cannabis industry that affects it a lot. So how significant would that be for the industry and then in turn for the stocks for these companies?
So that was another angle that I kind of tried to take in my coverage as well, noting that as things currently stand, any company that essentially deals in has something to do with these Schedule I substances, they are actually at the tax level in terms of excuse me. I'm trying to remember. So there's a provision under the Internal Revenue Code. This is explains the pause. Section 280E, which is pretty hard to recall off of the top of your memory. But that essentially prohibits these companies that work tangentially with Schedule I drugs from deducting certain business expenses that would normally be considered fairly essential, procedures such as payroll, marketing costs when calculating federal taxable income. So if marijuana were to be reclassified, this would essentially lift this fairly heavy burden off of these companies. So, in addition to investors celebrating this news and the stocks jumping, this could actually be pretty significant news for these companies themselves beyond just the shares.
And as you mentioned, we're not sure exactly when or if this could happen. The Washington Post said this announcement could come as soon as Monday, although again, the White House is still saying a final decision has not been made on reclassifying cannabis. So if this announcement comes Monday, or if it's delayed or it doesn't come at all, how can we expect the market to react in each of those circumstances?
So historically, any amount of good news seems to boost these stocks pretty high up. Um, but with regard to, I mean, if the decision isn't made, I think there is some degree of understanding among investors that this is fairly speculative for now, as it has been in the past. There really haven't been any major factors driving the stock specifically upward over the past 3 years. I noted in my coverage that, yeah, over the past 3 years, Tilray and Canopy Growth have been pretty sharply down. And over the past year as well, those stocks are trailing behind the broader market as the S&P 500 actually gains. So investors, understand these are the factors that they're up against. The timeline has been uncertain historically. I think it's worth noting that when President Trump took office, the DEA, which has a certain degree of oversight over how these drugs are classified, they were moving through the review process after the Justice Department proposed making marijuana a Schedule III substance last year. So investors are, I think, fairly comfortable admitting that, yeah, this is a slow process when we're talking about regulatory decisions being made. The stocks, I'll say this much, the stocks definitely will not respond positively if, we're told, or not as positively comparatively as they, did on Friday. If there really isn't, if there's a continued lack of clarity, I would say. But in terms of good news, that could give them another boost.
And since you're always watching the stock market, you see in real time how this is all happening. How immediate, can you give us an idea of how immediate the reaction is when a big announcement like this is made, maybe in the past? How quickly can we expect that movement to hit the market?
So I'll go back to Friday, honestly. We were following these stocks in pre-market trading. That's before the market formally opens. And we were already seeing these pretty sharp double-digit percentage gains. Not in the 40%, 50% range that they ultimately ended up closing in, but still pretty sharp gains. So that's just, the nature of the news cycle. And as soon as headlines come out, stocks tend to react just because everyone kind of always has the news in their face and everyone's always watching, myself and, investors in this space as well. So, it really all depends on when news comes out, when there is more clarity, and not even news. The White House, they told myself and other reporters that no final decision had been made, which indicated, maybe it won't be Monday, maybe it won't be immediate, but if the White House puts out a statement saying, all right, these are the actions we're taking, that's, not just headlines. That's another thing that could boost these shares. But it really does depend on the timing of the news. Mind you, these reports, a lot of these reports were coming out on Thursday, and then we started seeing these really sharp reactions while before the market formally opened on Friday.
And that's something that if you followed President Trump for a while, he'll do things like that because that again, technology, you guys, you gotta love it. But yes, to her point, and I was just like, y'all are talking in circles because you have nothing else to talk about. This could have been a 3-minute video. Here's the deal. The Schedule 3, it looks like it's happening, right? Which would be a phenomenal thing for marijuana. But the bigger question is it still going to be considered a federal offense right, within states. Because even though we have states that have said, and they've classified marijuana, this is not a misdemeanor, this is not a state offense, you can't be arrested for carrying it, is there still going to be the implication at the federal level making it illegal federally? And that's what this all comes back to. Because if that's still the case, that it's illegal federally, right? Even if it's reclassified to 3, what are we doing? You really have to take away the punishment, right? We are in a time of prohibition again, right? It's just not alcohol. So what are you going to do, federal government? You really have to outline what this looks like. Then further to that, what about all the people that are incarcerated right now because they violated a federal law, which will no longer be in existence? So now you might have, tens of thousands of people released from jail who were put in jail based on federal charges for marijuana possession. So it goes beyond the stock market. It really gets into the legal stance on it. And like I said on the show before, I don't agree with Stacey Abrams on everything, but I know her main concern about making marijuana legal in the state of Georgia. She was like, I don't want to see people, and she mentioned her brother, for an example, harmed, right, for possessing marijuana, thinking, okay, I can possess this because it's not legal, because it's been made legal, at the state level, but it still carries a federal charge. So that was her stance. And I get it, right? Because you have to take away the federal punishment. Once that's done, again, we're out of prohibition for marijuana. And you've got pharmaceutical companies that are mad because they don't want the competition. They just want to solely own, right, the right to sell us pharmaceuticals. Because, see, there are a lot of people that utilize medical marijuana, right? Not necessarily THC, but the CBD, right? Am I saying that right? CB, the cannabis oil, CBD oil. I don't use it. So that's probably why I can't always remember it. But what I'm saying is, with that, if you make that legal, right? And that does have traces of THC in there. And I covered that a couple of weeks ago. And they're trying to say, well, because it has that, you got to make it illegal. I'm like, who's lobbying for this? Oh, it's the pharmaceutical companies, because see, they can't take it and repurpose it, because see, their whole thing is chemicals. They're not into natural products. CBD. Thank you, cool water. Thank you, cool water. But you know what I mean? So they don't want the competition. What? Because if that happens, they cannot do what they did back in 2021, or I should say in 2020, when everybody was, locked in their houses 2 weeks to slow the spread. Remember that? See, they can't come in and say, well, everybody has to get this because this is our way out. They can't do that anymore. Not with this. Not with another alternative that people are turning to because they don't want to be on chemical pain medications. They'd rather be on something else. This kicks down the door in the NFL too. I'm just saying. They are the largest consumers of pain medication. What are you going to do, NFL? You're going to keep telling players they can't take CBD oil for their pain, but they can take morphine or Percocet, which is a lot more damaging to them, won't heal them at all. Yeah, like I said, larger conversation. It's a larger conversation. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes and how it affects the stock market. Now, I want to transition now. Now, if you guys joined me on Friday, I talked a little bit about the 14th Amendment and also about a bill that Representative Chip Roy introduced, HR 6225. It's called the Pause Act. Well, he discussed that a little bit on Fox News, so I wanted us to check that out.
Big close-up is Texas Texas Congressman Chip Roy. Congressman, that sounds like a great idea to me, but tell us about your legislation, why it's necessary to not just stop illegal immigration, but to pause all immigration.
Yeah, great to be on. Happy Saturday to you all. And, thanks for showing the absurdity of Benny Thompson and what he said in referring to the murder of one of our brave soldiers here in the nation's capital, a few blocks from the White House, as an accident. Another still fighting for his life. This is what we're dealing with. This is the radical Democratic Party that are more interested in playing politics and trying to focus on protecting those who want to endanger Americans than standing with an administration and the president and Secretary Noem who want to secure Americans. So you asked me about the Pause Act. The fact of the matter is we have 51.5 million people in this country who are foreign born. That's about 16% of the population. That's higher than at any other point in our history. So go back to 1920, where we had maybe a similar percentage. It was about 15%. And we had a whole bunch of people who had come here who, by the way, were more interested in assimilating, who were participating in schools that actually taught that America is great, and when we had no social welfare state. Today, we have millions of people who have come here who don't want to assimilate, who aren't in schools teaching that America's great, and they are on the social welfare state. We need to pause immigration. We need to fix our system. We need to end diversity visas, end chain migration, the kind of people that allow their cousins and uncles and aunts to come in. We need to stop the abuse of H-1B visas. We need to end birthright citizenship. We need to codify what the president has done. We need to stop having taxpayer funding of illegal alien children in our schools, as we do in Texas and everywhere else. And we've got to recenter our entire immigration system. So pause and let's fix it. I think we need that for the country. We did it in 1920. Our country was stronger for that for about 4 or 5 decades. And now for 50 years, we've been blowing the lid open and allowing people to come here, including radical Muslims, radical Islamists who want to undermine Western civilization and our way of life. It's time to pause it and fix it.
Congressman, first of all, I agree with you on that, but I want to talk to you about something that's probably more relevant today than it should be, considering the tragic events that happened just before our show. Yeah. So your fellow Texan, Senator Ted Cruz, has a piece of legislation that he's introduced to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. It was kind of weakened, I guess, on the House side, and he's ripped them for it. I know that the chairman of the Judiciary, Jim Jordan, backs this bill. I believe you do as well. What are the politics we don't understand to designate literally the group that brought radical Islam to the world as a terrorist organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was weakened in the Senate. I think Senator Cruz was frustrated by that. I'm a co-sponsor of the House version of that bill. Senator Cruz is absolutely correct. President Trump has been doing a magnificent job pushing back on radical elements who want to come to the United States. I think Senator Cruz is absolutely correct to say that we need to designate them as terrorist organizations, just like, by the way, Governor Abbott just did in Texas, who also declared CARE a terrorist organization. And you know what? I introduced legislation to take away the tax status of CARE. We should pass Senator Cruz's bill. We should pass my bill to take the tax status away from CARE. We should pass my bill to vet people for Sharia law. We should pass the Pause Act to freeze immigration. All of this matters because you have a radical bunch of Islamists who want to remake America in a coordinated way. And you're seeing it unfold in Texas, where you've got Epic City in Plano, an Islamic center in Houston. You've got, Dearborn, Michigan. You've got Minneapolis and what you're seeing happen there. You have Mamdani getting elected in New York. And all of these folks have ties to very radical organizations and elements. And we need to address it. And you start with the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the head of the snake.
Congressman, you just saw Kristi Noem getting asked these ridiculous questions, asking her to quit if the president doesn't fire her first. I think she's doing exactly what the president wants to do, so I'm pretty sure he's not going to fire her. But Democrats, nonetheless, are not wasting any time working to impeach several Trump cabinet members, including DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. They hate that name, by the way, Secretary of War. They're like, no, it's Secretary of Defense. Like, no, he's defending our country. That would be war. And HHS Secretary RFK Jr., what the heck has he done wrong?
So, well, Yeah, first of all, President Trump has built a magnificent cabinet. These people are some of my very close friends in the world. All three of those individuals are good friends of mine. I stand right behind them. I stand behind President Trump. The American people stand behind them because they're doing what they want us to do, which is secure America. Pete Hegseth is restoring the military. If you watch the Army-Navy game today, what a magnificent event.
Yep.
Watching those men and women in uniform. And guess what? Enlistments are up. Application to the academies are up.
Yeah.
Secretary Noem, Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, the great men and women of ICE and Border Patrol, they're securing our border. They're removing bad actors, removing gang members. We're stopping Tren de Agua. We're stopping, the violent gangs that are endangering our people. And you've got the leadership from Secretary Kennedy to go after the ridiculousness of the vaccine abuses, what happened under COVID. He's restoring integrity there to seek scientific data. This is what the American people want. I stand behind President Trump. These impeachment efforts are ridiculous, right? They did it to Trump twice. In 2019, they did it again in 2021. This is all theater that they want to pursue. We had to go beat back an attempt to impeach the president just this last week. Now they want to impeach these great cabinet members. Look, Mayorkas was impeached by the House. I led that effort, along with a number of my colleagues, because he endangered Americans. Jocelyn Nungray died. Her mom is a dear friend of mine, and Jocelyn Nungray in Houston died because of the abuses of this administration, or that administration, the Biden administration, and Mayorkas. So that was endangering the American people. These three want to protect America following the president's leadership.
That's right. And Congressman, just switching gears here for a moment, health care premiums, they're set to rise for millions of Americans at the end of the month. And this comes after the Senate failed to reach a deal this week. White House Republicans unveiled their own health care proposal yesterday. It doesn't include an extension of Obamacare subsidies. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, what we've got here is a situation where the American people are feeling it, right? They can't afford the health care of their choice. Why? Because Democrats broke the system. And now the solution Democrats are offering is to print money in the Treasury, take those dollars, and to go put it in the pockets of the very insurance companies that have been enriching themselves for the last 15 years in crony coordination with despicable people in government who are profiting on the back of the misery of American people. We want to stand alongside the American people. They ought to keep the insurance that they've got. We ought to provide a freedom option so they can go get affordable care, go get direct primary care, have expansive health savings accounts, be able to go to health sharing ministries, be able to have all sorts of options so that the American people can choose what's best for them. We choose doctors and patients, not insurance bureaucrats or government bureaucrats. And now the administration wants to lead and go forward. We are rightly going to reject this enrichment of insurance companies. The president said it best. His instincts are great. He is leading in the right direction. Let's not give money to enrich insurance companies. Let's stand with the American people and empower them. We are going to present strong health care solutions as early as this week into next year on prescription drugs, on freedom of choice to be able to get the insurance you want, go to the doctor of your choice, and we're going to continue to lead. Democrats should not be able to, leverage the fact that they broke the system and then complain that it's broken.
You got that right. Congressman, I want to ask you about 2026. You are one of several House Republicans who won't seek re-election this year as you make a run for Texas Attorney General. Are you worried that some of these retirements are going to hurt Republicans in the midterms? We had a special election in Tennessee. It came out the right way, but a lot of these special elections maybe not going so well or as well as we'd like for Republicans. So do you have any hesitation or concern?
Not at all. President Trump is leading this country in the right direction. Congressional Republicans are as unified as I've ever seen them. Look, there are things that I think we ought to be doing. We ought to lean more into passing better border security bills, election integrity measures like my SAVE Act that the Senate and Chuck Schumer are blocking. We need to get on offense, in my opinion, over this next year. And if we do that, we will win next November. I'm running for Attorney General because we got to save Texas. If we lose Texas, we lose America. And we need to go back and fight the radical Islamists, the Marxists, and the people putting criminals on the streets in Texas. We need to stand strong on a secure border. If there's ever unfortunately, another Biden-type administration, that's why I'm leaving. I'm not leaving from anything that's bad here. I'm leaving because I need to go help save Texas. And a bunch of my colleagues, they're stepping up. We also believe in limiting our terms to some degree. And I've been here. This will be 4 terms. It's time to go home, to be with the people of Texas and stand to defend them. We'll do just fine next November if we stand alongside President Trump and we lead and we deliver for the American people as the president campaigned on, and we did.
Congressman Chip Roy, thank you so much for joining us on this.
Yeah. And so I wanted to get to some of the comments And Brum Bastike says, I'm pretty sure the Zionists were some of the first terrorists. Okay, allegedly. Trump's a con man, says lowest IQ administration ever. Not an intelligent person within the Trump regime. And he gets booed every place he goes. And I'm assuming you're saying Chip Roy, not sure. Yeah, I kind of like Chip Roy. I actually do like the piece of legislation that he has put forward, because what it does is it does something that I've been talking about for a long time, even when I was running for president. I said we need a moratorium administratively on the border, and that's what HR 6225 does. It actually says, you know what? We're going to pause letting anybody else in. You know why? And this is just for me, in my opinion. We need to pause it because there are people here that it takes up to 10 years just for them to get the legal immigration status. It does take that long, up to 10 years for people to actually become a US citizen from another country. And you would think, why does it take so long? Because they have to vet people. They have to come, you know what I'm saying? They have appointments that they have to come in for. It isn't just a simple, hey, I'm just going to fill out this application and then I'm just going to become a US citizen. It does not work that way. Like I said, it takes people up to a decade to get their citizenship legally. Now, if you've got that, but then you've got other people that are just flooding the border and coming from other countries, and these people are not getting vetted. We have over 300 ports of illegal entry, and they chose to come here illegally. The question is why? Right. And at that point, you have to shut all of this down so that the people that did come here legally at least have the opportunity, right, to get their legal status. And everybody else who came here illegally, in my opinion, they need to be removed from our country because they did not come here legally, and they need to be removed along with their children. Now, this goes back to birthright citizenship. If you decided to come here pregnant to have your child on the soil, then you had a nefarious intent. You had no intent to align yourself with American values. You had no intent to become an American citizen before you had that baby here, right? People that overstay their visas, overstay their green cards. All right. No one was given legal asylum or refugee status from some of the places these people came from. They just said, I'm a refugee and I'm an asylee, and then they were just let in. And those were lies. So you committed fraud. It's that stuff. Oh, okay, let's see. And someone says it takes less than 6 months to vet someone, right? 10 years is just punishment. It is. But, you know, I'm not sure of all of the different things that people have to go through, but there are people that they'll come here and they'll marry somebody who's a US citizen. And personally, I know somebody that this has happened to. She married somebody, and then within like 2 to 3 years, they got a divorce from her. But at that point, they had their legal status. So was she used? Yeah. It's those things that happen. Right. And I think that's part of the reason why it takes so long. It shouldn't take that long, but it takes that long because you have to make sure that people are in alignment with our Constitution, that they are in alignment, that they want to set their allegiance to America, not from the place that they left. This is why if you go back in history, back to when they established the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, the framers of those amendments brought up questions. What if somebody comes from this particular part of the world? Are we going to just let them in if they have a baby on the soil? What about people from China that they did not want to just let in? What about the gypsies, right? They had all of these concerns. And there were certain countries that they just wouldn't even let in the United States, period, until 1965. Under the Great New Society, right? Those LBJ who kicked that door down. Yeah. So when we look at that, there was a reason why the framers said we cannot let certain people here on our soil, or it will work against us as America. And now we see where we are. And it is unfortunate. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody that comes in here that they have a nefarious intent for America, because there are some people from different countries. They want to be here and they want to make sure America is better than it is now. And they want to contribute to make sure that America stays a free country, right? And a republic. Oh, okay. I try not to cuss too much on the show, Patrick, but thank you for your response. I do appreciate it. So I won't read the first one, but I will read the amen. So if anybody is on YouTube with Patrick, you can read his first response. But I do, how should I say it? I do catch your sentiment. Yes, people should definitely want to come here legally, right? And how should I say, be a part of the country that you almost die for to get here, right? Because that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And Patrick says South America destabilized itself. We don't take their blame. No. Yeah, and it's sad, right? Because the individuals that come from these different countries, right, where their government has unfortunately abused their country and their citizenry, they come here to escape that. But sometimes they come here with that same mentality and then they perpetuate it. It's very sad. And we do want the best of everyone. And Uncle Coolwater says, we got to make sure that while ICE is hiring, we got to make sure that they're not putting things in place to hold back Black Americans who want to be part of ICE, right? Because when I did research on the percentages who had the largest amount of hires, it was white people, then Mexicans, and then Black Americans. We should be the top recruits, not whites, and definitely not Mexicans. Well, and it comes back to who is applying, right? Are Black Americans applying? You know, and do they know the benefits? And are they being made to feel guilty if they do apply? Right? You're already at the bottom. Why would you be taking people off the soil? This is about being an American right now. You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, you know, I would like to say, okay, let's be tribal. And no, let's not be. Let's just be Americans and get people off the soil that don't respect the country. You know what I mean? Like, can we do that? Can we do that? And Patrick says, absolutely wouldn't go to a single country on this planet. Just respect. Oops. Trying to read that comment. Just respect their people and their laws. Just because, yeah. America is blowing up 1,000 boats, 1,000 miles off your coast. Yeah, that's kind of happened. I'm going to get into that one next. People don't want to come to America to be part of America. They want to bring their country and their culture and enjoy the benefits of America, right? The old ways when people wanted to be a part of America has long passed. Their loyalty is to their country first, not America. These new immigrants are different. They are. And I'll just use the Somalis, for example. They say, I'm Somali American. No, you're either an American or you're not. Look, and that's what we need to get to. I understand you may have come from another country. Are you an American or not? Because see, I can say I'm an American Negro. I'll put the Negro after American because I am American, period. Negro is my ethnicity. I'm unique, written into legislation. And I am a descendant of that. Very proud of that. I don't like what happened with slavery. Sad. But at the end of the day, I'm still an American. And this is my home. And I take pride in my home. Anybody going to just let somebody walk into their house, kick their feet up on their coffee table and say, get me a beer? And you get them a beer? Stop that. You were not going to do that. You're going to be like, who are you? Get up out of my house and don't you ever come, and grace my threshold again. You would shut that down. Then why do we allow it at our border and support it? We have a measure in place. Treason, right? When you were giving aid and comfort to your enemy. People have abused the 14th Amendment to create an army of people here that have no respect for the country. And we just have to say it like it is. It is what it is. We didn't tell you to do that. You were encouraged to do it. And now here we are. And the question is, are we going to stand up for our country or are we not? All right. Now we're going to get into our next video. Now this is Senator Moreno. And he is at, I want to get the meeting right. He's at the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. And they are actually talking about the Affordable Care Act. So I wanted to bring that up because they also brought it up in the previous video. So let's check this out. And this was on December 10th. So this happened last week.
The following: premiums will drop and the average family will see premiums go down by $2,500 a year in 2014.
President Obama.
Is that a lie?
Yes.
Is there a single solitary American? If we asked this intrepid staff to go hunt down an American citizen, would we find an average family whose premiums have gone down in the last 11 years by $2,500 a year? Never have we enriched companies the way that Obamacare has enriched healthcare insurance companies at the cost to the American people. And it's a disgrace. Why don't we do all these things? Instead, what we do is we do performative outrage and managed failure of votes that we go on and say all kinds of nonsense, knowing there's no chance your bill's passing tomorrow. But do you want it to pass? Or do you just want to have a political issue so you can continue to get reelected? It's disgusting what happens in this town.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the last 11 years.
Okay, so that snippet that you saw, that's pretty much the crux of his questioning, his rebuttal on the hearing, right? At this particular meeting. But I like how he said performative outraged and managed failure, because that's what we've seen. Performative outrage and then manage the failure. And not only do they manage the failure, they get rewarded for the failure by getting reelected and sent back. These are the things that we have to stop. Right? And like I said, I was grateful that I came across it because he put things in a really good context, in my opinion, to have people say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. And these are the things that we have to fix. So let's hear more from Senator Moreno.
By $2,500 a year. Never have we enriched companies the way that Obamacare has enriched healthcare insurance companies at the cost to the American people. And it's a disgrace. Why don't we do all these things? Remember, Rich, I think is what you're voting on tomorrow, is a very narrow conversation. This is about the Biden Obamacare COVID bonus subsidies. That's the vote tomorrow, correct? We're not voting on Obamacare writ large. We're voting on strictly.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
I assume through the chairman.
Okay, through the chairman, yes. Okay. Yes? That's what we're voting on? I just want to make, because it could be very confusing when we talk about
is on extending the health care tax credit that were adopted in the COVID era.
Yep.
A good idea. I wish we hadn't put a limit on it.
Okay, now when he talks about extending the tax credit in the COVID era, now mind you, he said the COVID era, and see what happened during that time. You had the CARES Act, right? And you also had the Inflation Reduction Act. But the only individuals, and I won't say individuals, the companies benefited The people didn't. But at that time, money was just flowing, right? Because we were like, we got to keep the government open. People are at home. People aren't working. We got to keep the economy going. And there was this huge balloon that occurred with the insurance companies, right? Because they were trying to develop, you know, an inoculation to assist the general public. Like all these things were going on, but it really centered around healthcare. They want to go back to that level of spending. Where is this money coming from? That's what I'm saying. Like, what? Where's this money coming from? Huh? How you funding this? Nope. That's just what we need. Without a funding source, you would have to tax people to get this funding. What are you talking about? Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So just to be clear, so we're talking about this. I just want to make sure we level set for everybody here because look, I'm about solving problems. I'm not going to be somebody who says that we should let people, Americans especially, suffer because of incompetence of politicians. So we're going to talk about just these subsidies, okay? Nothing else, no other conversation. So, Mr. Bragdon, I ask you a question. Are veterans' health care costs going to go down whether we do this or not?
No.
So if you're a veteran and your copay is going up, or your deductible is going up, or your quality of service is going down, are you affected by this?
Not at all.
All right. If you're a union worker, makes great Jeeps in Toledo, Ohio, are you affected by this?
No.
So if your union health plan goes up 15, 20%, your copay goes up, your deductible goes up. If we do something about this, does that help that union worker in Toledo, Ohio?
No.
How about people who used to work for me in my private companies? I started as a small business owner too, Mr. Jacobs. It's really hard. It's really hard. If you want to do something in this world that's tough, start a small business. And if I, in my case, went out and through a dealer association got health care for my employees, and those premiums, are they affected by this resolution of this issue?
No.
If I'm on Medicare, am I affected by this?
No.
If I'm in Mr. Steely's case with Luke on Medicaid, is he affected by this?
No.
So you're talking about a very narrow set of Americans that are affected by this. And that's the disappointing part is that the only issue that Democrats want to fix is for probably something that affects 5 or 6 or 7% of Americans. Why don't we, and I asked this to my Democrat colleague because the rest of the colleagues are not here, why wouldn't we fix it for all Americans? Americans deserve a government that fights for them every single day to deliver them affordable health care, but we're only talking about a very narrow group of incentives. So now let's shift the conversation over here. How do we get affordable health care? Mr. White, who said the following? Premiums will drop and the average family will see premiums go down by $2,500 a year in 2014.
President Obama.
Is that a lie?
Yes.
Is there a single solitary American? If we asked this intrepid staff to go hunt down an American citizen, would we find an average family whose premiums have gone down in the last 11 years by $2,500 a year?
I can't think of a case, not in the individual market.
It'd be impossible. Any market, by the way.
Probably any market.
Right. So the ranking member mentioned a family making $66,000 a year. There's no scenario on earth in which they saved $2,500 a year.
No.
Correct? Okay. So that's good. You said something that was interesting, Mr. White. You said that Obamacare has been fantastic for health insurance companies. I want to quantify that. Yeah. Would it surprise you to know that the stock price of United Healthcare in 2015 was $115 a share? And last year it closed at a record high of $611 a share?
Not at all.
So Jacobs, that's pretty good for a business guy, right? I mean, 5 times the value of your business. Let me put that in further numbers. United Healthcare used to be a $108 billion enterprise back in 2015. That's a big company, $100+ billion. Would it surprise you that it's almost a $600 billion company?
Not at all.
Now, those numbers are so outrageously high, it doesn't mean anything. Let me just quantify them for people watching. Ford Motor Company is about a $50 billion company. It's 12 times the size of Ford Motor Company. In fact, it's pretty much every car company with Tesla excluded.
Now I'm going to pause that for a second. Now, Ford Motor Company actually develops a product, a car that you purchase. Can you physically touch insurance? You can't. Insurance is there if you need to use it, right? But the Affordable Care Act, on its premise was, okay, everybody needs to buy into the system so it would make it more affordable for everyone, right? The more people in the pool, the more it spread out, but that's not how it worked. It actually gave power to the insurance companies because a lot of insurance companies said, well, you know what? We're not going to be in this state or this state. And what it did was it created less competition, right, in the state. And so for the companies that were left there, they could charge pretty much whatever they wanted to, and they did. And it's made insurance more unaffordable than affordable. And then it was like, well, hey, Congress, you need to come in and make this more. No, more competition will actually drive down the cost. What Representative Chip Roy was talking about. They don't want more competition, they want less. You can't buy insurance across state lines right now because of the Affordable Care Act. So even if you found a cheaper insurance rate in, let's say, Tennessee, and you're in Georgia, you can't buy it because it's not in your state. And these are the things that weren't explained in the Affordable Care Act. I'm really grateful to Senator Moreno for his questioning. And he's going to get into some more, but I just wanted to stop for a second and just be like, look, Ford is worth $50 billion. An insurance company is worth, what, 12 times that? For insurance? Something you can't drive, something you cannot physically consume, can't even touch it. It's like selling air in case you need it, right? And the question is, has it been there when you did need it? Let's continue.
Combined is United Healthcare in 10 years because of Obamacare. Never have we enriched companies the way that Obamacare has enriched healthcare insurance companies at the cost to the American people. And it's a disgrace. So let's go through solutions. Mr. White, are people who enter this country illegally eligible for Medicare, Medicaid, or the Obamacare exchange? They're not, right? They're not eligible. Right? They can't go get an Obamacare premium. They can't get a Medicare card, but they can go into our hospitals and get treated at no charge, correct?
Correct.
And when you own a business and you give part of your services for free, is it really free or do you really charge everybody else?
It gets charged to everyone else.
So 10, 12, 15 million people who entered this country illegally, presumably with a lot less healthy than American citizens, would have massively increased the cost of our health care. Is that true?
By billions and billions of dollars.
Big transfer payment from American citizens to non-Americans. Would transparency make a difference? If you came into one of my dealerships and I didn't tell you what the price of the car was until 60 days after you took delivery, would you do that deal?
No, sir.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Okay. Well, do you think transparency matters? I mean, knowing, by the way, how much an MRI is. In fact, you're a pretty good expert, you and Mr. Bragdon. How much is I'm going to play pickleball tomorrow morning, and there's a pretty good odds that I could hurt my knee. I hope not. Well, what would it cost me to get an MRI?
So I just paid cash for an MRI last year in Naples, Florida, and it was about $230.
And if I went to my health care plan that I get from the United States Senate, my deductible, I think, is like 12 grand. what would I pay for that MRI at the hospital? I'd pay the full boat and pay my deductible, right? Which would be how much?
I suspect that they would have negotiated a really good deal for you, probably like $900 or $1,200.
So I paid $1,200. I could have gotten it for $300. I pay it. Now, when will I know? Like I walk in and they say, hey, I'm sorry about your knee. It's going to be $1,200.
Well, they'll ask for your.
It sounds like the guy on the panel has better insurance than the congressman. I'm like, wait a minute. Did we miss that? How are you paying $300 on an MRI and he's paying like $1,200? Yeah, again, it's crazy. And Ms. Liberty says, all part of Obama and Dems' plan. I'd be double checking to see what politicians had stock in healthcare. Oh, a lot of them do. And there are some of them that dumped, and there are some of them that increased, right? And I want to say that there is actually a report that comes out probably like the second week of the month, right? So if we were to look at it, it would show the trading that happened in the month of November. Right. But because we had the government shutdown, I don't know if how accurate those reports are or when they'll be released. Right. Because the government was shut down for 40 days. So I know they're playing catch up, especially with that. But it will be interesting to see what tradings went on because they could still trade, even though the government was shut down. So I will definitely look into that. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Your insurance card first, and then that will dictate your price. And then, as you mentioned, you'll get a letter in the mail after the fact telling you what you owe after you've had the service.
Yeah, exactly. I actually did that in my dental plan. I had a root canal, which, by the way, don't recommend you do that as a elective surgery. And I got a bill for $4,600. I almost fell off my chair. Because, again, they billed the insurance company declined it. So for Mr. Jacobs and Mr. Lehman, would association health plans work? Like, would you love to be able to go to Costco or Amazon or Walmart and be able to buy?
Wait a minute. He's a congressman. Got a root canal. $4,600. His insurance didn't cover it. Weren't we supposed to get insurance that was supposed to be, like Congress's insurance? Like, your insurance is horrible. Like, you're paying $1,200 for MRIs, $4,600 for not even covered. Like, I think y'all need to get your stuff renegotiated. Y'all are on the losing end of this. Y'all are getting hit too. You're in Congress. That's crazy. And Sincerely Lawless, thank you so much for joining us from X. And she says, good morning, founder. Good morning to you too. And Ms. Liberty says, cash pay MRI is cheaper than paying with insurance. You're not wrong. It's very interesting how cash pay seems to be cheaper, right? Because they don't want people to go into debt, but they will charge somebody with insurance 4 to 5 times more. I actually covered that on my show, how hospitals do charge more to people that have insurance. It's very sad.
Competitive healthcare where you can empower yourself and your employees and your businesses to shop. Would that make a difference? Would that save money? Yes or no, real quick, because I'm out of time. I'm going to get the
30% premium reduction.
So why don't we do that? Why don't we do association health plans? Solve this problem for everybody. How about PBM reforms? Should we do that? Why don't we do that? Let's make that happen. Let's not shut down the government over this. Let's work together to solve the entire problem. Let's do that. Let's get together. Let's show the American people we're able to govern. Can you imagine if tomorrow morning the American people woke up and go, my God, the leaders in Washington, D.C. are able to govern and solve our problems. Would having most favored nation status for drugs lower the cost of health care, yes or no?
Yes.
Cross-state shopping, would that help? Reducing administrative costs, would that help? Tort reform, would that help? Putting money in health savings accounts? Why don't we do all these things? Instead, what we do is we do performative outrage and managed failure of votes that we go on and say all kinds of nonsense, knowing there's no chance your bill's passing tomorrow. But do you want it to pass? Or do you just want to have a political issue so you can continue to get reelected? It's disgusting what happens in this town. It's why I ran for office. And I hope we can find it in our hearts to actually solve this problem for the American people, but the lack of seriousness as displayed by the fact that you called a hearing and not one Democrat other than the ranking member is even here to listen to this testimony. Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Lehman, I empathize with you. I'm a small business owner. Let's solve this problem. Let's make that happen.
Yeah. But like he was saying, performative outrage. I hadn't heard it put that way before. Performative outrage. And you don't have a good outcome. And you're banking on that so that you can run on failure. Really? Managed failure? That's what you're running on? But that's what they're doing. I mean, I can't say they're not doing it. They're doing it ad nauseum. They don't care because they're like, whatever options do you have? And I really think 2026 is going to be an eye opener for a lot of politicians. They're going to start hearing from an American electorate that is over it. And it's going to come from independents. It's not going to be, in my opinion, a Democrat or Republican issue because people are exhausted with both parties. Like they are done. So again, it's going to be very interesting to see how this all pans out. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to get into some news from all sides to see what else is going on or what happened over the weekend. So thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and I will see you on the other side.
At All Sides, we believe unbiased. All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it?
And we're back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And let's see, Heather Ryan says, people nowadays run on, well, I don't stand for this like him or her, instead of I do stand for this and they don't, if that makes sense. It does. And I think that's a lot of what Senator Moreno was talking about. They get performative with it, right? Well, I stand on this and they hate you and I'll do this. Well, what do you, or I stand on this. Okay, well, what does that look like? Can you give me a 3-point plan of how you intend to at least attempt to fix this? They never do that, because if they did that, we would have to hold their feet to the fire, right? If you always notice, no one really runs on this is how we can get to a solution. Now, I'll use Mandani for an example. He was like, well, we'll just have rent freezes and we'll give free public transportation. You really can't deliver on those things. But they sounded good and they got you elected. Now, carrying it out is a totally different thing. It's not realistic. Now, had he said, okay, we're going to work on how we can reduce rents or look at rent controls we currently have, right? And see how, possibly expanding them will work to the benefit of citizens, right? Without destroying capitalism of people who want to, own real estate, right? But nobody wants to hear that because it's very complex. Okay. Or, free buses. Okay. We are not going to offer free bus rides, but what we can do is we can reduce the fares for people that are senior citizens or that are students or that are for people who are already on public assistance. Okay. Because those are funds that you can actually divert to your transportation system from your other services that you have in place. Like, that's kind of realistic. It's not free, it's reduced, right? But free sounds a lot better. But even your own governor said you can't do that. So did you even vet your plans before you tried to, before you said them to people? People believe like, yes, we're going to get this free. No, you're not. You're not. And it's crazy. She says that doesn't fit on a bumper sticker as easily. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And it doesn't get people outraged, right? When you say, well, how are you able to do this for free when that person doesn't? And you can say, well, they just don't believe in giving you anything for free. That's still not telling you how you can get it for free. And that's where you get the performative outrage. See how that works? You're just building people up and you're just stirring the pot without any real solutions. And this is the thing, we need to start pressing these politicians that run for office on the solutions, because see, they're not working for the people. They are literally working for the people, putting money in their pockets. And those people do not have the welfare of the general public in mind. They just want the general public to destroy themselves. And it's happening. And that's the sad part about what we see in our politics. So we're going to move on to our next video. And this is Donald Trump. And I guess they're what's happening on in Venezuela. It's a little bit of a breakdown. And this is coverage from NBC. So let's check it out.
Bring in our senior White House correspondent, Garrett Hake, who has made his way to the camera there on the North Lawn. And Garrett, listen, the president is confirming a piece of reporting that originated from Bloomberg News maybe not an hour ago. And it made waves, obviously, because this is a significant escalation now in these tensions that we've been seeing in the Caribbean. The president is now confirming it from the White House. Help us understand sort of how we got here, because there have been a series of strikes in the Caribbean, including one that has put the defense secretary in hot water with Congress.
That's right, Hallie. I mean, look, there's been an effort here by this White House to engage in what is essentially an undeclared war against what the administration calls narco-terrorists in Venezuela. The president and his White House have argued that Venezuelan drug traffickers have become a unique and dangerous threat to the United States. They've carried out these strikes on what they say are drug boats going back to early September. This is another matter, a significant escalation here, what the president describes as a seizure of an oil tanker, a far more involved military operation, certainly, than striking a small boat with an aircraft, something that we believe involved the Coast Guard and the Department of Defense, the Navy specifically, basing that on comments from Secretary Kristi Noem, who this morning interrupted an event in which she was otherwise speaking to say that she was being briefed on this and that this was an operation that was being watched closely by officials across the government. The president, in an interview on Monday, suggested that Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's days are numbered. The administration has been looking for other ways to ramp up pressure on Maduro. The president publicly has confirmed that he had authorized clandestine operations of some kind against Venezuela several weeks ago. And so there's been a number of different elements to this pressure campaign, essentially, against the government of Venezuela and against these drug cartels, which the White House says are linked together. Today's announcement of this action, of which we know really very little beyond what the president has just said, really the most dramatic step so far.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay...
Yeah. And yes, it is a little bit of old news, but I wanted to bring it up because there's some things I just don't get to on my show. And so I do want to make sure that you guys are informed. But thank you, Air to Life. Open Your Eyes says, save a child, a drug dealer. Thank you, President Trump. Yeah. I just, a lot of the conflicts going on in the Caribbean, because unfortunately it is drug ridden. And there's a lot of criminal activity down there, things that we don't see and that, we're somewhat not a part of, but at the same time, it does get to our shores. And so it affects us in the aftermath. Like I keep saying, I want to know who's on our soil making the order, that, hey, we need the drugs over here, because you're not going to make a delivery of something if somebody on the soil here doesn't want the product. So there's somebody here that wants that product. We need to get rid of those people that are here on our soil that keep saying, hey, bring that product over here, right? So that we don't have these conflicts in the water. That's my opinion. And Black Flag says, warm day to you. I know, right? It's freezing outside in Black America. It's cold. It is definitely freezing. And with that, let's check out some of the articles on all sides. And unfortunately, there were 3 Americans killed in Syria in an ambush. And Trump and Hegseth vow for retaliation. Okay, so 3 Americans were killed and several others injured in Syria after a gunman allegedly linked to ISIS opened fire on U.S. and partner forces during a patrol. U.S. official says President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth later issued messages vowing retaliation. So the details: on Saturday, 2 U.S. service members and 1 U.S. civilian were killed in the ambush, and 3 additional service members were injured. The gunman was killed by partner forces, according to several media outlets. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds said the 2 fallen service members were Iowa National Guard soldiers. 3 other Iowa Guard members were wounded. The attack occurred near the city of Palmyra while U.S. troops and Syrian security forces were conducting a joint patrol. On December 13th, 2 U.S. service members and 1 U.S. civilian were killed, and 3 service members were injured as a result of an ambush by a lone ISIS gunman in Syria. U.S. Central Command, that's CENTCOM, wrote on X the gunman was engaged and killed. The Trump and Hegseth each released statements condemning the attack and warning that perpetrators would face consequences for targeting Americans. The savage who perpetrated this attack was killed by partner forces. Hegseth said in a statement, "Let it be known, if you target Americans anywhere in the world, you will spend the rest of your brief, anxious life knowing United States will hunt you, find you, and ruthlessly kill you," he added. Now you got to remember, he's a Marine, and he has no filter. So we mourn the loss of 3 great American patriots in Syria, 2 soldiers and 1 civilian interpreter. Likewise, we pray for the 3 injured soldiers who, it has just been confirmed, are doing well. Trump said via Truth Social, this was an ISIS attack against the U.S. in Syria, in a very dangerous part of Syria that is not fully controlled by them. Trump added, there will be very serious retaliation. And how it was covered in the media across the political spectrum provided similar coverage, but there were some key differences. Fox News on the right took an angle that focused on Trump's retaliatory threats against ISIS, describing his Truth Social post as a strong message. Conversely, the Daily Beast that leans left wrote a lead that subtly cast doubt on Trump's credibility by casting his vow of very serious retaliation against ISIS with his earlier claim that the group had been defeated, right? So you're always going to have smaller cells within the group of ISIS, So that to me is like very disingenuous coverage. It was like, well, you said they were defeated. How are they still hanging around? Because they're always hanging around, right? I mean, I can make the argument, why is there a particular group killing Christians in Nigeria, right? But that particular group is here on American soil. Will they turn to doing that? And I am referring to allegedly Muslims doing that. And if you said, okay, we defeated that issue and it still keeps happening, yeah, it's going to constantly be happening. We're constantly going to have evil going on everywhere. So again, in my opinion, to frame it that way is very disingenuous. But hey, gotta have performative outrage. I like that tagline, performative outrage, because that's what we have in our media. It's constant. That's never gonna happen. Zelensky offers to drop Ukraine's NATO ambitions as Ukraine meets U.S. in Berlin. It's never going to happen. He keeps saying that. It's never going to happen. He is allied with NATO. They are. And that's why Ukraine and Russia are at odds. That's how we got here. They're never going to not be aligned with NATO. It's just never going to happen. It's a losing conversation, and it's sad. But Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky reportedly offered to drop his country's NATO ambitions in exchange for Western security guarantees. He's been given every guarantee that he could possibly have, and he will turn around in 2 hours of saying, "Yeah, we're good to go." We got to do something about this issue. I'm sorry. It's Sybil. You just do not have, you just don't have your country's, best heart and matter. You just don't, Zelensky. You don't like Ukraine. And that's to a lot of these governments. It's, if you offer them $2, they will change their tune in a moment. And I think that's what's happened with him along the way. So Zelensky reportedly first stated the position in a WhatsApp chat with reporters on Sunday ahead of 5 hours of meeting with Trump administration officials in Berlin. Zelensky said from the very beginning, Ukraine's desire was to join NATO. These are really security guarantees. Some partners from the US and Europe did not support this direction. Thus, today, bilateral security guarantees between Ukraine and the US, Article 5, like guarantees for us from the US and security guarantees from European colleagues, as well as other countries, Canada, Japan, are an opportunity to prevent another Russian invasion. Now, after the meeting, Zelensky's advisor, Dmytro Ledvin, said in a WhatsApp chat that the talks went on for more than 5 hours and ended on Sunday with an agreement to resume Monday meeting. That would be today. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff wrote on X, representatives held in-depth discussions regarding the 20-point plan for peace, economic agendas, and more. A lot of progress was made, and they will meet again tomorrow morning. Now, for context, on December 9th, President Trump said Ukraine should hold elections because it gets to a point where it's not a democracy anymore. On December 4th, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia will seize all of Ukraine's eastern Donbass region by any means necessary. Wow. Okay. What are we going to do? It's crazy. How the media covered it. Associated Press that leans left bias included ample framing on tough obstacles ahead of ceasefire negotiations, pushback from European officials, and reporting an overnight Russian attacks on Ukraine. Reuters that center prominently added analysis in the coverage, calling the development a major shift for Ukraine that meets one of Russia's war aims, right? The Washington Times that leans right speculated the move from Zelensky may be an effort to show flexibility and garner goodwill with U.S. negotiations. As of early Monday, all sides did not find coverage from the Kremlin funded that leans right, which is RT. My goodness. Oh, and Mark from the Soil, thank you so much for reposting the stream and joining us. Also, Black Flag, thank you for reposting the stream. This one is going to get interesting because there's been so much back and forth. I mean, President Trump, he's got in there and he's tried to talk about getting precious metals and all these stuff, and they just cannot come to an agreement. Russia's tired of it. They're sick of the NATO allegiance, and they keep encroaching apparently on Ukraine, and Ukraine keeps pushing back, and everybody around Ukraine keeps pushing back, and it's exhausting, in my opinion. It's like we have so much going on here at home that I'm like, y'all just gonna have to figure it out, right? Figure it out, because what I don't want to see is, hey, we're going to send Ukraine a little bit more money so they can kind of keep this up. That's what I don't want to hear. If we're not getting anything in return from Ukraine, then I don't want to hear it. Like, we need something at this point. Precious metals, whatever resources we can get, because there needs to be more of an exchange, as opposed to we just keep feeding this issue that isn't going anywhere. We cannot get into these forever conflicts. I don't want to call them wars. I will call them conflicts, right? Because they keep a linchpin in place. And it's not benefiting Americans over here. We're still footing the bill on lunch. We still have Ukrainians coming over here that are in certain parts of Ukraine that have been war torn and tore up. So we got that whole other, refugee situation from that. It's just not boding well for us. And I really, I'm looking forward to turning the corner. Now, I did have another video to share about Trump and the AI executive order that he signed, I want to say about a week ago. So I will cover that in tomorrow's show on Tell It All Tuesday. But thank you guys for joining me here on Recap Monday. Stay warm, definitely, because it's very cold outside. Not like, the song Baby It's Cold Outside, but yes, it is very cold. So stay warm and stay healthy. Though remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.